Hi WHD dancers. I am here in Sydney on the last leg of my tour. I'm having a great time practicing, and in a couple of days I'm going to be teaching at Hoopy Happenings. I've learned a lot about teaching this dance as I've gone along, and I want to share some of my tricks with you because as you're practicing or if you're teaching the dance, these things come in handy for keeping people in sync. First of all, counting out loud. If you were in any of my workshops, you know that I'm a counting Nazi. You have to count out loud. Don't not count. Counting turns your brain off, it gets rid of your ego, and it helps your body remember what you're doing. And so if you do lose your place in the dance, if you've been counting, even if you're in performance and you're not counting out loud anymore, you'll have a resource to come back to. You know that on 5 the hoop is in a particular place, and so you can get your hoop there. So please do count out loud when you're practicing, even if you don't think it makes sense. Just try it and see. Okay, so there are a couple of places where it's really important in the dance for everybody to have their hoops in the same position, like at the top of an arc or the bottom of an arc. And I never really made it very clear in the tutorial videos what those places were. So I want to tell you now, the A section, the slow side weave. You're hitting the bottom of the loop on the even beats, so 2, 4, 6, and 8. When you're doing the big circles, the top of the big circle is on count 4 and the bottom is on 8. If everybody does this in sync, it looks fabulous. If everybody does it out of sync, it looks kind of weird. When you're doing isolations, the slow two-handed isolation is a 4-count isolation, so you're at the top of the isolation on 2 and the bottom of the isolation on 4. When you do the fast isolations, you're at the bottom on 2. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, sorry, I've done too much counting. And circles are a 4-count thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those in a minute, but there is a specific count for them. If you learn these counts in the A section when you're doing the solo stuff, it makes the duo stuff a lot easier because everybody knows where the hoops belong. And so the variations of moving around and grabbing each other, holding hands and stuff, become the hoops aren't as much of a distraction. So do the counting and try to get everybody in sync. I've learned that at the end of the B section, when we do that wave of turns, it's best to do it in 3 groups. That way you get people who are moving on 1, on count 3, and on count 5 twice. But if you have a really big group, you can divide it into as many pieces as you need. It just gets a little confusing if you have 4 groups, because then the 4th group can't go again at the end, otherwise they end up on beats 1 and 2 in section C or in the solos, and it just looks kind of strange. So I found that dividing the group into 3 rows makes the most sense when you're doing the wave. There are a couple of catching up points in the dance. For example, well, in A, if you just keep the counts and make sure that everybody's hitting the top and bottom of the isolations and circles, it looks really nice, and it's easy for people to catch back up if they know those counts. In B, there's a hold after the step through and before the jump into the cannon, which is a good place for people to make sure that everybody's got their hoops in the same place, and if you've dropped your hoop or screwed up the step through or whatever, that's a nice place to get everybody back into sync. And another place is at the top of the rainbow move. It's an 8-count move, and at the top is at 4. So again, just like in the A section, if everybody knows that their hoop should be all the way at the peak of the arc on the 4-count, then they'll get there and everybody will be in sync. And in C section, there are 4 beats of pumping in between the switch and the lift. That's a good place for people to catch up. It's also a useful place for people to sort of adjust their lines again if they did the switch and they didn't quite get lined up with everybody in their row and column. You've got 4 counts to kind of shuffle over a little bit if you need to. Also, there are some musical cues built into the music. Because it's an original piece, we were able to build the music and the choreography together. So at the end of the solo and the duo sections, listen for the drums. At the end of the solo section, the drums are your 5, 6, 7, 8 into the B, so it gets you, gives you a count in. And at the end of the duos, there's a little more drumming, but it leads you right into the partner duo work. Another musical cue is at the beginning and at the end. You'll hear Swinky, our singer, singing hoop, hoop. In the beginning, that's when you're going to point, and at the end, it's a nice place to add an accent to your pose if you want to. It's not necessary, but I've been doing that with a lot of my workshop groups, and it kind of looks cute. So, also, okay, so on another topic, I've had a lot of workshops where I've had more people than space, and so I've had the opportunity to modify some of these moves, and I know that not everybody is going to have a gigantic stage to work on. So if you find yourself in the case where you have a lot of people and not so much space, here are 3, maybe 4 tips to help you crunch people together a little bit. The carousel turn in the B section is a huge space move. It's all, both arms stretched out, the hoop further beyond that. If everybody's in sync, you can do it, but generally not everybody's totally perfectly in sync for that. So instead you can pull the hoop into the body so that it's sort of like held here and then going out that way. So you've got a body and a half, which really tightens it up. And you can do that on the 1 and then do 2, 3, 4 to spin around. If you do that, you can't do the back jump in, so you can push the hoop up over your head and flip it down to get to the point where you're ready for the cannon. Not the cannon, the wave. The diamond walk also takes up a fair amount of room, and it can be tricky if you don't have a lot of space or if you have a really big mix of right hooping and left hooping people, because they're going to go in opposite directions and run into each other. So if you are truly running out of space, instead of walking, you can march in place and clap on the 4th beat, and it's not as dynamic, but it still is pretty effective. It looks good and it sounds loud, and everybody can do that. And again, the switching, which is also in the C section, it doesn't work if you don't have enough space. So you can just do the peacock arm thing with the sparkly fingers, do that twice, and don't switch places. If you have room to switch places, definitely switch places, because it gives the people in the back a chance to shine in the front for a while, and it means that you can't have any super shy dancers. Also, if you don't have really high ceilings, the rainbow and the circles can be a little tricky because they do go pretty high above the head, so you can pull them in. Just pull the elbow down and do the circle like right above your head rather than way up above your head, and the rainbow as well can be pulled in so that your arm is over your face, and then you don't have as much of a height issue. And the last thing I want to talk to you about are zirkles. Zirkles they're not hard, but they're a little hard to explain to people who haven't done them before. You can have a death grip on your hoop. You never let go of this move. But I do recommend that even if you have a tight grip on the hoop, use your thumb as a guide, because the thumb is going to be pointing up or down depending on how you're flipping the hoop, and that can really help people to sort of orient themselves. I do it in a 4 count. Count 1 is a big move. It's 180 degrees from where you start. So if you're doing a solo zircle and you're starting at the bottom, 1 brings you straight up to the top. And then 2 and is a flip. So flip, flip. Your thumb is going from right or left or whichever direction it's pointing, depending on which hand you're using. It flips once, and then it flips again, and that's where it starts to hurt. So 3 is bringing it down 90 degrees, and 4 is returning it to the start. At the beginning, it should be exactly the same place as where you started. So if your thumb's pointing in the wrong direction, you either flipped too many times, which is unlikely because I think it would put out your shoulder, or you didn't flip often enough, or you flipped it again as you were coming down. That seems to happen kind of frequently. When you're doing the circle wrap, you're doing it starting from the side, but it's exactly the same thing. You're going to do 180 degrees across the body so that it's all the way on the other side. So it's going left to right or right to left instead of bottom to top. But it's exactly the same thing. It's really important to get this timing right in the solo A section, again, so that when you're doing it with a partner, the timing isn't an issue. So it's 1, flip, flip, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. The flips happen on 2 and 6 and if everybody gets that right during the solo section, it works much, much more smoothly when you're working on the wraps. I guess that's kind of all I have today. I'm sorry about any weird background noise or the loud birds in this park. I haven't heard any airplanes, so I hope you can hear me all the way through this. I'm just thrilled that this is going so well. So many people have learned the dance, and it's been really exciting. I've learned a lot about the dance itself and hoop groups all over the world. I'm going to sign off now and go practice because I've got to teach this again in a couple days. Love you all. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.